Hello. Welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy this chapter of Only Human by Olivia and Lacey Julius.
2 days after the homecoming dance, I found myself standing at the edge of the football field after school, the sun sinking low on the horizon and casting long shadows across the bleachers. The air was cool, crisp with the first hints of fall, and the faint smell of freshly cut grass mixed with the distant sound of shouting from the soccer team practicing nearby. The field looked exactly the same as it always had. The bright white lines marking the yardage were as sharp as ever, the goalposts standing tall and unyielding. The scoreboard loomed in the distance, dark and blank, but ready to light up at a moment's notice. Felt so familiar, and yet, standing here now, it felt like I didn't belong. I shoved my hands into the pockets of my hoodie, the fabric soft and worn. Brittany had texted earlier, asking if I wanted to hang out, but I'd told her I needed a moment to myself. And now, here I was, staring at the place that used to feel like home. Back when I was Connor, this field was everything. I remembered the adrenaline rush of running onto the turf, the roar of the crowd in my ears, the slap of my cleats against the ground. I remembered the huddle, the way we'd lock arms, the scent of sweat and determination hanging heavy in the air. I remembered the weight of the football in my hands, the way it felt like it was a part of me, like I was born to throw it. I remembered the victories, the losses, and everything in between. But now, all of it felt so far away. I glanced down at myself, the jeans and sneakers, the hoodie that fit my new body a little too perfectly. My hands, smaller and smoother than I was used to, flexed nervously at my sides. The thought of wearing shoulder pads again, of stepping onto this field with my old team, felt like a dream from another life. I used to be him. Connor. Quarterback. The guy people looked up to on the field. The one who was supposed to lead the team to victory. But I wasn't him anymore. The sharp edge of that realization cut deeper than I wanted to admit. No matter how much I wanted to cling to the past, no matter how many memories I tried to hold on to, the truth was right here, staring me in the face. I wasn't Connor. I was Charlotte. The thought sent a knot twisting in my stomach. It wasn't that I hated being Charlotte, not entirely. In some ways, I'd started to find pieces of myself in this new life. Brittany and Natalie were part of that, and so were gymnastics. But standing here, looking at this field, all I could think about was how much I'd lost. "Hey, Charlotte," a voice called out behind me. I turned, startled, to see Derek walking toward me. He was still in his practice jersey, the green fabric clinging to his sweat-soaked frame, and his cleats clicked against the asphalt as he approached. "Didn't think I'd see you out here," he said, his tone light but curious. I shrugged, trying to act casual. "Just thinking." Derek nodded, stopping a few feet away. He glanced at the field, then back at me. "You miss it, don't you?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked back at the field, my chest tightening. "Yeah," I said finally. "I do." He nodded again, his expression unreadable. "You know, it's not the same without you out there." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "It wouldn't be the same with me out there either." "Maybe not," he said, his voice soft. "But that doesn't mean you're not still part of this, Charlotte. You were the best quarterback we ever had, and nothing's going to change that." His words hung in the air, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe him, to hold on to the idea that I could still be a part of this world somehow. But another part of me, the part that saw my reflection every morning, that felt the tightness of a leotard instead of the weight of shoulder pads, knew that wasn't true. "I'm not him anymore," I said quietly. Derek didn't argue. Instead, he just looked at me, his eyes steady and kind. "You're still you," he said after a moment. And that's enough. I blinked, my throat tightening as his words sank in. He didn't press me for more, didn't push me to say anything. He just stood there, quiet and steady, like he was waiting for me to figure it out for myself. I turned back to the field, the memories swirling around me like a storm. I wasn't Connor anymore, but maybe, just maybe, that didn't mean I couldn't find something new. Thanks, I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. Derek smiled, a small, genuine smile that warmed the cold air around us. Any time, he said. And with that, he turned and jogged back toward the locker room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the empty field. For the first time, I felt like I could let go just a little. Not of everything. Not yet. But enough to take one more step forward. Derek paused a few steps away, glancing over his shoulder at me. His expression softened, and then he gave me that familiar lopsided grin that I used to see back when everything felt simple. "Hey, Charlotte," he called out, his voice a little hesitant. I turned to face him, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah." He shifted his weight, one hand rubbing the back of his neck. "Is it, too soon to ask for a redo?" "A redo?" I echoed, not quite following. He nodded, his grin turning sheepish. "Yeah. A do-over on the homecoming dance. Maybe something a little less crowded? Just the two of us." The words hung in the air, and for a moment all I could do was blink at him. "You're asking me out?" I finally said, incredulous. "Well," he said, his grin growing as his confidence seemed to return, "I thought that was pretty obvious." I stared at him, my mind spinning. This was Derek, the same Derek who'd been my teammate, my friend back when I was Connor. Now he was standing here, sweaty from practice, asking me out on a date like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I don't know," I said, crossing my arms over my chest. "Isn't this a little weird for you?" His grin didn't falter. "Maybe a little," he admitted. "But weird isn't always bad." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, my lips twitching upward despite myself. "You're persistent, I'll give you that." "Gotta be, right?" he said, his eyes sparkling with humor. "So? What do you say?" I hesitated, glancing back at the field. The memories were still there, heavy and unyielding, but Derek's voice brought me back to the present. "All right," I said slowly, meeting his gaze. "But no promises about it not being weird." He laughed, the sound warm and easy. "Deal. I'll text you later?" "Sure," I said, my chest feeling a little lighter. As he jogged off toward the locker room, I turned back to the field, a small smile lingering on my face. Maybe things wouldn't go back to the way they were, but maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe moving forward wasn't about forgetting, it was about finding something new.